Okay, so this week we're going to talk about something scary, and there is nothing scarier than doing something for the first time. My first time going into a kafeneio, which is a Greek cafe meant for men where they gamble, was one of those first times that was a little scary. So this week on All the Best on FBI Radio, we explore firsts. A first flight, a first time back to a place once familiar, a first crush, and the first time learning a punchline in a different language. But before we do that, I want to acknowledge that I'm recording from stolen and Gadigal land, and I recognise that the area where FBI Radio is situated, Redfern, was home to the first storytellers, the Gadigal people, and has long been a place of storytelling, strength, resistance, and resilience for First Nations communities. So there's something about the first time you do something. It leaves a strong imprint because it's new and it's a marker in time. Now as adults who start to tick off everything on our list, we start to run out of firsts. Sometimes things no longer have the childlike wonder they do when we were kids. They no longer feel that special or that scary. But 1 year ago, I did do something scary for the first time. It's kind of random, a little kooky, but it is close to my heart. I'm a frequent gallivanter of Marrickville Road. I'm somehow always there. So I was always intrigued by a particularly inconspicuous fading sign on top of Save the Children op shop that reads Omonia Coffee Lounge. I decided to one day go up the brothel-like staircase, and what I mean by that is the walls are kind of chipping away and it's really dark and dingy. When I go up, there's a very barren interior with curtains from the outside world of Marrickville Road completely concealed. A functional kitchen is in the corner, and there's a man making a coffee so strong, if you know Greek coffee, you can get a headache just from smelling it. And most importantly, there was a group of about 8 men on a round table with a stained green tablecloth flipping cash. Gambling. They look up at me. I'm a foreigner. They're confused, but then they return to their card game. I order a Greek coffee, and my tongue starts burning. I really want to speak to the men, but don't forget, this is my first time here, and I am still really scared. And this place is a relic. It's existed since 1955, and these men have been there since then, probably, in the same very chair, playing cards, gambling, socialising. As they say, kafeneio, every day. And I'm the only woman here too. So getting up from my onlooking table with my burning tongue from the Greek coffee, I stand over the 8 men at the table. I'm like I'm monitoring an exhibit. And I finally mustered up the courage to ask them why they come here.
The old people come in this place to pass the time. And sometimes play cards, sometimes have a coffee, sometimes beer, and meet each other, the old people. Some of these people I knew about from 70. I used to work here.
Wow.
In the kitchen.
So you've seen it over the years?
Yeah. It's very expensive to have a kafeneio. You have to buy a rate, you have to buy to clean, everything. It's no money. Years ago, we have 3, 4, 5, 7 around the Sydney. More than 7 clubs like this. And now a little bit, few people are left.
So I did eventually overcome my fear of going to the kafeneio for the first time. Even though I've seen them in Greece from the outside, it was the entry that was a big point for me. I got suggested to even go to another one in Belmore, which was even more mysterious than Omonia because there's no sign and there's no Google Map location. And I have been back to Omonia since then. There are some firsts that not everyone shares, like going to an almost abandoned kafeneio in Marrickville, or, better yet, being a chopper pilot.
This is the story about the day that I first experienced flying in control of a helicopter. Now, the way that our Navy works is that we actually take one pilot on the right-hand seat and then we take a navigator on the left-hand seat and we teach them how to fly. So after months of ground school, learning all about helicopter aerodynamics and the movements of the controls, and then on the day I went out to do my first flying in control of the aircraft. Sitting beside me, a good friend of mine, Johnny May. He's a test pilot, so well experienced and knowledgeable. Johnny Our hover taxied us at 30 feet over to a spot marked on the ground with white rocks, marked spot alpha. We sat in a perfect 30-foot hover, not moving left or right. And Johnny said to me, "Andrew, do you remember your helicopter aerodynamics lessons?" And of course, my brain is now spinning full of this knowledge about if I pull the collective in, if I push left with the cyclic, all of the things that I need to do to compensate for moving the aircraft in flight. With some fear of trepidation, my voice, I said, "Yes, I do." In which case he said, "Handing over." Well, I grabbed the cyclic and the collective, and we started to move up, we started to move down, we started to move left and right, and then the dance began. We were all over the place. I was facing up, I saw the fence and the trees on the right too close than I cared to. We were over to the left, we were all over the place. My mind was spinning as I tried to compensate by looking down as I must move the cyclic forward or pull the collective up or feed some right rudder pedal in. I was looking down to try to fix all those things. My brain was spinning with not only was I struggling to be able to achieve this physical feat, but then my brain started to go overworking by saying, well, if I can't do this, then I can't become a tactical coordinator. The Navy's not going to employ me later on in life, as old as I was, to just sit in the back of the aircraft. So they would kick me out of the Navy. My wife would divorce me. I'd end up living in a box on the side of the road. I was a complete and utter failure, and this was the struggle that was going through my head in fractions of a second as we danced all over the sky. So after far too long, Johnny May grabbed hold of the controls, shaking them, and said, "Taking over," and brought us in a fraction of a second back to a perfect 30-foot hover over spot alpha, facing into wind, with no movement whatsoever. I was bathed in sweat. I was a complete and utter failure. I was going to be thrown out of the Navy for this failure to be able to do this fundamental skill of flying a helicopter. And Johnny looked across to me and he said, "Andrew, do you remember your helicopter aerodynamic lessons?" And of course here, now, as a complete failure, I just said, "Yes, I do." He said, "Forget them. What I want you to do is look out the front and keep the picture out the front the same." He paused, and then he said, "Handing over," and shook the control column as I took back over. Now suddenly, I wasn't looking down at the instruments. I wasn't looking down at the controls surfaces to understand where I had to be. The blade spinning over my head at about 270 kilometres an hour. I looked out the front of the windscreen, and as we started to shift left, I was able to look out the front and just bring the aircraft back to the right. As we started to go up, I started to get it down. It wasn't perfect by any means, but after about 5 to 10 minutes, we were in a loose 20 to 40 foot hover, somewhere over spot alpha and somewhere pointing into wind. And eventually it got into my head that it's not about the small stuff. Trust what the aircraft's doing, keep the picture out the front the same. And that's a message that stayed with me for the rest of my Navy career and through my business life. The small things will work themselves out, but just keep the picture out the front the same.
You're listening to All the Best on FBI Radio 94.5. I'm Gabriella Accaria. That story was produced by Kwame Slusher. The first time I visited the house my grandmother grew up in a village in southern Greece, was when I was 12, and it was definitely one of those experiences. The house that my grandmother and her 5 siblings once lived in left no trace of her and her family, and it was deteriorating and falling apart. Visiting a place for the first time in a while can be a strange and sometimes jarring experience, especially when places shift and there's unfamiliar tongues.
This is the first time I've been back in this building in more than 30 years. This is also the first time I've been in this country in my entire life. The last time I walked up these stairs, I was still a child, and this country didn't even exist. This country rose out of the ashes of another after I had left. This language spoken in this staircase by my mum and my aunt and my uncle. It's a language that also didn't exist when I was last here. It's a language I don't understand. My mum tries to fill me in broken bits of Spanish and English. She tells me fragments of the story of the family who lives here now. The family who moved in after my grandparents died. We get a tour of the apartment. We see my old room, the corner where my bed was, the spot where I would sit at the piano and pretend I could play. We walk around, we sit down, we hear old stories, we eat fresh raspberries. And then, half an hour later, we leave. And on the way back to the car, we turn and look at the building with its shell marks on the walls. And my uncle points at the window on the third floor where my grandfather was standing.
Aha, sniper. Aha, francotirador. Ti asas. Ti no había sangre.
There was no blood,
No había sangre, solo
only a small mark,
dice directo al corazón.
straight to the heart.
A mí dice, mi papá siempre decía,
It seems my grandfather always said,
I would like to die fast, something like easy, straight away. Dada.
You're listening to All the Best, proudly sponsored by the Art Gallery of New South Wales on FBI Radio 94.5. I'm Gabriella Accaria. That story was produced by Dan Semo. It was made for Audio Flux Circuit 4. You can check our show notes for more details. Do you remember your first crush? The first time a boy asked me out was for Year 6 formal. It was lunchtime in our primary school playground, and as he approached me with his posse of friends, I knew what was happening because the gossip in my school told me so. He said to me, if I don't ask you out to formal, my mum said that she'll go up to a random girl for me and ask her. So I remained to be so cool, so nonchalant, I rolled my eyes, and I eventually said yes. At formal, he gave me a slap band corsage and we took really awkward photos together. So boy problems are always fun. When it happens for the first time, it's absolutely soul-crushing. But sometimes, friendship prevails.
Do you remember being 15 when everything was shifting? Maybe you got your braces off or your group of friends started to change. The way you saw yourself and the world became a little more complicated. And in high school, friendship dramas felt like the end of the world. Izzy and Charlotte first met in school.
I joined the school she was at in Year 6. We're in the same classes. I guess from there we just became closer.
They became so close that eventually they ended up moving to college together.
We would just hang out with each other so much. We would sleep over at each other's houses like before tests and exams and things like that.
And all our friends would be like, oh, you hang out with like Charlotte this weekend? I'm like, yeah.
While Izzy and Charlotte are best friends, they've had their fair share of arguments and they aren't afraid to have their opinions heard. Although this was usually harmless, their friendship was once tested when they met a boy named Fraser.
We did this program called the Prosper Program, and it was kind of like mentoring about life. And me and Charlotte both did it, and I met Fraser there.
Yeah, and so like I knew him by association of Izzy.
Through Fraser, Izzy and Charlotte met Benji, and they all became good friends.
It became a thing where Izzy liked Fraser and I liked Benji. And then the first time we really got together was my birthday. We all went to the movies together, and then it was like a couple of days after that we all wanted to hang out again. During this time we'd have a group chat with all four of us and we'd call
for like at least an hour, like every single night.
But things got complicated. It turns out that Fraser liked Charlotte instead of Izzy.
I was sitting on the couch and I looked back at him and he was already staring at me, and I got this feeling that he liked me.
I remember being like, oh, like he's really friendly towards Charlotte.
I think after that it got a little awkward. I think Izzy could kind of tell that Fraser was distancing himself.
They said something like, you were kind of sitting really close to Charlotte. What's going on? And I was kind of like, do you like her? And he said, oh, I don't know. If you didn't, he would just say, no, like, why would you say that? I was instantly really mad about it. Not to like Charlotte, but to him. So I was like, oh, go ask her out then. So he was like, oh, okay, good idea.
Charlotte initially said no.
Like, what are you doing?
But eventually she began to change her mind.
It was a couple weeks after, and we'd start calling one-on-one. It's not like I kept it a secret from Izzy, but I'd make the effort not to tell her because I didn't want to upset her.
Shortly after this, Izzy and Charlotte were at an event with their brother's school and sat next to each other on a crowded table.
It was a group of maybe like 20 guys, and we were eating dinner. Charlotte turns to me and she like looks at me funny, and I'm kind of like, why are you staring at me, you little freak? She looks like almost really scared, and I'm like, what's going on? And she was like, I gotta tell you something. Oh, this cannot be good. Instantly, I was like, oh, it's Fraser. I was like, what, are you like boyfriend, girlfriend now? She said something like, yeah, don't be mad. And I remember I got so angry. I don't think I knew they were dating. All I knew was that he didn't really talk to me anymore. It was a shock. I thought that she was waiting to tell me in front of all these dudes that I hardly knew so that I couldn't act out. And that's what made me more angry.
While Izzy was furious, she barely reacted.
I think that's what threw me off, is that I remember asking, like, no, I want you to be mad, like, I want you to tell me how you feel, and she kind of just was silent, and that was just such an odd feeling for me. I did not like it at all. Yeah.
Charlotte was nervous about the repercussions of her actions and whether they could be justified to Izzy, and she was expecting the worst.
I didn't want it to wreck anything, because this is like a bad thought. Like, they didn't date, and so in my mind I was like, this isn't like a deal breaker, because I would never want our friendship to break over something as stupid as a guy. In my head I was like, I'm going to tell her, but if it goes south, obviously I'm not going to continue it. I think it was a bad place to tell her, but I didn't know how it would go if it was like just us hanging out. I think she would have wanted to go home, and I wouldn't want to have done it at school with all our friends.
But Izzy wasn't as hurt as Charlotte expected, or at least not for the same reason.
I wasn't that mad about them dating. It's a bit of a weird thing, but like, we weren't dating, so it's not that bad. Maybe a week after they started dating, almost all my feelings were gone. It was just some other dude. Charlotte wouldn't sit with us because it was a bit awkward, and then everyone's like, where's Charlotte? And I was like, well, funny thing about that, she's dating Fraser. And I remember all my friends were like, what? Are you joking?
There was tension between the two, at least for a while. But it wasn't the end of the world or their friendship.
I don't remember how we started becoming good friends again, but because we never really like stopped being friends.
And we didn't really talk about it that much.
Yeah.
We kind of
just like moved on.
Yeah. I don't know. Weird. I would complain to her about him all the time. I don't really know. I think we just ignored it. And I think from that point on we got much closer.
Yeah, because this was year 10, and then by year 11 we were fully inseparable.
Obviously we were all kind of 15, 16 at the time. I think it was a bigger thing.
Yeah.
But now I would never do that, like, ever.
I feel like even though we were 15 and 16, we dealt with it in a pretty mature way.
I don't know, people say, you know, don't end a relationship over a boy, but it kind of like bonded us in terms of like he was really stupid.
We joke and be like, oh, thank God you stole him from me. Genuinely, I'm grateful it happened because he was such a piece of work.
Although Izzy and Charlotte bonded over this situation, it doesn't mean they've stopped having arguments, especially in times of stress.
That issue was probably the most mature way we've ever dealt with an argument.
I think last year was our biggest
fight, yeah. And it won't even really be an argument. We'll talk about it for like maybe 2 minutes, and then later we'll be like, do you want to go get lunch now?
There are a lot of times where I'm very impatient and I can get really grumpy. So like we have a lot of bickering.
Izzy and Charlotte have shown that friendships don't have to be perfect to last. Arguments happen, as they do in any relationship. What matters is how you work through them, and if the friendship means something, it'll survive. When you're a teenager, everything feels bigger than it really is. But it's about learning how to understand one another. And that understanding has helped Izzy and Charlotte maintain their close friendship into adulthood.
If a lot of people don't like us, they won't like the other one. We're like a pair. We're like the same person, just into two different people.
Yeah.
You're listening to All the Best on FBI Radio 94.5, and I'm Gabriella Accaria. That story was produced by Phoebe Steley. Have you ever been somewhere with your family for the first time, or have gone somewhere without them for the first time? And it's a whole lot of nerves with all the friction. Doing something that's outside of your family's box can be intense and scary, like leaving the country alone for the first time. I know that happened when I left on exchange when I was 19, and my mum has probably never quite forgiven me. Look, maybe things did go wrong, and maybe she was scared, and maybe I was scared, but it resolves in the end. This next story by Christina Maris explores these familial tensions.
I didn't sleep last night. I bet they didn't sleep either. Scared, excited. We're stuck in my brother's car, the five of us, because his girlfriend is here too. My brother is driving, my father in the front seat, and Mom, his girlfriend, and I in the back. It is too hot and too sunny to be a winter morning. And I regret my decision to wear this black jumper. We wait in front of the enormous entrance as my brother parks the car. My father would kill for a smoke, but we all pretend that he quit months ago, and there are no windows here where you can sneak a smoke, pretending to watch the afternoon pass. I want them to feel comfortable, but I am tense, scared, and confused myself. We climb the echoing marble stairs and wait, while time stops. When the usher finally waves us inside, my family doesn't know where to go, disoriented inside the immense hall. They scurry along a side passage to sit in the very last row of chairs. I'm already walking to the front, so I cannot tell them that it is okay, that they are legit, that they do not have to hide behind. But they are already sitting. And despite the fact that I am facing away from them, I sense their uneasiness, as they don't know what to do with hands, handbags, house keys loose in their pocket, with the weight of centuries of poor farmers' children sent to mind the animals or to slave away at some relative's home. I sit in the one chair opposite the bench, where a board of professors starts the proceedings by asking me to state my full name. I clear my throat, trembling, painfully aware that I am the first person in my family to be awarded a university degree.
You're listening to All the Best on FBI Radio 94.5. I'm Gabriella Accaria. That story was by Christina Maris, and it was also made for Audio Flux Circuit 4. You can check our show notes for more details. Landing a joke can sometimes be a challenge. My sister and my friend were joking the other day that when I make a joke that doesn't land, I give a small grimace and do a little And I also got told that I'm the type of person that gets laughed at and has a funny presence, so thank you for saying that, sis. Now, telling a joke in another language is a whole different story. I don't think I've ever successfully done that. You don't even think about all of the nuances that come to you in your native tongue. So doing it a whole different language is even crazier. In our last story on firsts, Ramon tells us about how he hit the punchline.
Do you remember the first time you made a joke? I mean, probably not, right? And to be honest, neither do I. At least, not in English. If you speak or are learning another language, making a joke that lands can be one of the hardest things to do. It all lies in the subtleties, timing, a well-worded punchline. Allow me to demonstrate. Why do French people eat snails? Because they don't like the food fast.
You mean fast food?
Or how about, how do you get Pikachu onto a bus? You Pokemon. You know, Pokemon. Pikachu. Pokemon. See what I mean? When I was learning Spanish, I was great at getting people to laugh at me because of my pronunciation or my bad grammar, which is fine as long as it's in a friendly way. But to laugh with me, that's tough. But I remember the first time I was funny. Intentionally funny, that is. Picture yourself on a balcony at a house party in a foreign country. Now imagine a moment presents itself to tell a joke. Something simple like a play on words that occurred to you the day before in language class.
Che,
your heart races.
¿Conoces a Marcelo?
Will they laugh?
¿Seguro? ¿No lo conoces?
Time stops for an instant.
Pues...
And then...
Agachate y conocelo.
Mission accomplished.
You're listening to All the Best on FBI Radio 94.5. I'm Gabriella Accaria. That story was produced by Ramon Bryant. And if this is your first time, then keep listening to All the Best for unique stories from independent audio makers from so-called Sydney and around the country. Definitely catch our live radio broadcast on Sundays at 9:30am on FBI Radio 94.5. We also release a brand new episode every Tuesday at 4pm on allthebestradio.com, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Follow us now so you never miss an episode. All the Best is made at FBI Radio on Gadigal land, in association with SYN and 3RRR, on Wurundjeri, Woi Wurrung and Bun Wurrung lands, and ACCC on Arrente and Warramungu lands. Kwame Slusher is our production manager. Katarina Fraga Matos is our community and programming manager. The All the Best executive producer is Mel Bakewell. Imogen Brosnan is our digital media trainee. Patrick McKenzie writes our newsletter, and a special shout out to all of our amazing volunteers. Shining Bird composed our theme music, and Annie Hamilton designed the artwork. We're heard across Australia on the Community Radio Network, and we're made possible by the Art Gallery of New South Wales and the Community Broadcasting Foundation. You can find our full archive of more than 700 episodes at allthebestradio.com. I'm Gabriella Accaria. Thanks for listening.